Science is all around us, and food is no exception to this fact. There's a lot of food we consume on a daily basis that undergo a scientific process or are correlated to a scientific term that we just aren't aware of, which is why today I'll be talking about some of the most common scientific terms correlated to the foods that we eat. To begin with, we have melting point. This is the temperature and where a solid turns into a liquid. It undergoes a physical change. Two perfect examples of this will be butter and chocolate. Both butter and chocolate start off as a solid, but when meeting its required temperature, it could be turned into a liquid. For example, chocolate could be turned into a soft, smoothie, liquid consistency. And then we have something called intermediate moisture foods. These are foods that are solids, or at least semi-solids, that have less moisture available compared to moistured foods. They are dry, but not as dry as dry foods. Typically, these intermediate moisture foods contain a water activity in between 0.6 to 0.85. An example of these foods would be cake, jelly, honey, and dried fruits. For example, with cake. Cake is a solid enough, but contains enough water activity that gives it that spongy-like consistency. And the same thing with dry fruits. They're kind of harder on the outside, but on the inside they're smoother and squishier, almost like jelly, because of its water activity. Next, we have the process of curing. Curing is a process of adding salt and sometimes sugars and spices to draw out moisture from a food. It can be seen with foods such as dried fruits, beef jerky, pepperoni, salami, and sausages. This process is often done to expand the shelf life of foods. Next, we have microorganisms. These are any living organisms that aren't visible with the naked eye. Some of these are bacteria and fungi. Although some foods rely on these bacteria, such as yogurt and cheese, which what we consider intentional bacteria, some foods develop it based on exposure, which is what we consider an accidental bacteria. Foods that get this accidental bacteria are often seen in raw meats, vegetables, and fruits, which explains why oftentimes before consuming these foods, we clean them. The foods that have this intentional bacteria are called probiotic foods. Typically, they benefit our gut. And then lastly, we have food safety. Food safety is a policy. It's a practice and procedure that must be followed to ensure food is safe for people to consume. This can look in many ways, such as the way food is prepared, stored, and handled, which explains why many products have expiration dates. This guarantees that consumers are eating food in the safest way possible to prevent any sort of bad bacteria. For example, with products like dairy and milk, they have expiration dates, so we don't eat them after they're spoiled. This can also be seen in the way food is cooked. There's something called a danger zone temperature, which is the temperature in where bacteria grows its quickest. Typically is in between 40 to 140 Fahrenheit. And food safety is also the reason why brands and markets are obligated to follow food guidelines that touch on the way food is packaged and handled to prevent unnecessary and unwanted bacteria to grow on these foods. And the same way with restaurants, they must follow specific hygiene guidelines to ensure we aren't consuming unclean, full of bacteria food.